and another effective one. Matthew breaks a tackle, breaks another, gets a block. There are no flags and the race is on. And Matthew goes 90.
Burrow with the snap. Here comes the blitz. Burrow steps away from it, throws, catch made! Justin Jefferson has it at the 38, racing down the far line, sideline, 10-5, touchdown, Tigers!
Another play fake by Burrow, and a deep strike, and an open receiver, Jamar Chase, another touchdown!
Daniels pulls it, takes it himself, he's got the sideline! Jane Daniels off to the races, and a bang back inside, he takes it to the house, 85 yards for Daniel.
Go ahead and say it, Ed.
Go Tigers!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first edition of the Geauxld Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Doe. That's DOA. Man, I'm so glad you're here to join us tonight. This is our first episode. So all of you Tiger fans out there, make sure you like, share, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can stay updated on Tiger news and join the Tiger family here at the Geauxld Standard, because at the Geauxld Standard, we are the best. So what an amazing 7 days it's been for LSU, the football program. If you're a fan, you already know this, but we'll do a quick recap. Last Sunday, Brian Kelly was fired as the coach of the LSU Tigers. That Monday, offensive coordinator Joe Sloan was fired and relieved of his duties as well. How do I feel about those moves? I think it was time. I think Brian Kelly never resonated with the fans for some reason. It just never clicked. It never worked. Him in Louisiana, you know, there was always this come off from him to where he was almost too good for the fans, you know, didn't ever click with the fan base, you know, and those are the people that you want to have on your side, because when you lose the fan base, it's hard. And when you lose the support, it's hard. So I think Brian Kelly never really had that buy-in from the LSU fans, because I don't think he bought into the LSU fans. I don't think he bought into the LSU culture. I don't think he bought into the SEC. I think Brian Kelly was very impressed that LSU could pay him $10 million a year. And beyond that, me personally, I find that he was unhighly motivated to get the job done here at LSU. So here we are. You know, that's been talked about time and time again. It didn't work. Brian Kelly's fired. Still negotiating the terms of his buyout. I don't think that's been settled yet. But as we go on into the week, last week, like I said, Joe Sloan's fired on Monday. And then it seemed like from there on, it was kind of like a week cycle for the ages of where LSU had something in the news every day. You know, Frank Wilson was named as the interim head coach. Nobody better suited on the staff to do that type of job and that type of position in this type of moment. Frank Wilson is LSU. Frank Wilson has been a part of several different coaches at LSU. He's a New Orleans kid, started from the bottom, came up through high school coaching. He's got a lot of connects in the state, a lot of connections in New Orleans and Baton Rouge and everywhere. And Frank is the guy you want, man, in the rails right now. He is. You know, I would temper expectations for fans who consider, you know, what if Frank does what? Let's just take it 1 week at a time at this point. Let's just hope Frank has the team motivated. Frank has them ready to play. And we just see a competitive group of Tigers on this Saturday versus Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So the talk of the town has obviously been who is going to be the next coach of the LSU Tigers. But before we get into that, this is Tuesday, November the 4th, if I'm not mistaken. So as of right now, LSU has hired a president, Dr. Wade Rouse, formerly from McNeese State. They also hired, I think his name is Dalton, last name Dalton, provost that was at the University of Alabama. He's coming over to be like a chancellor of Baton Rouge and LSU's campus. So those 2 hires are in place. Okay. So we begin to see some semblance of structure and stability come back to LSU's campus. And it starts with hiring a president, because the president's going to hire, lead the charge in hiring the next head coach, which in turn is going to lead the charge in hiring the next AD as well. So I expect the athletic director to be the next hire. You want that hire done before you get a head coach in place. But let's talk turkey. So who would I want to be the next LSU coach? If it were my money and I'm making the decisions, I want Lane Kiffin to be the next head coach of the LSU Tigers. I know, shocking breaking news that I want Lane Kiffin. Why do you want Lane Kiffin, dude? Why? I think that Lane Kiffin has the ability to be very, very, very successful at LSU because of the resources, because of the recruiting base, because of the talent that's going to be in the state. And we know that I consider Lane Kiffin the greatest offensive play caller possibly in the world. Him, Sean McVay, whichever one you like. But I think Lane's in that discussion for best offensive play caller in the sport of football, period, no matter the level. So with that level of respect that I have for Lane, I just think with the amount of talent that the state produces per capita, the best percentages, look at all the NFL receivers from Louisiana. You got the Justin Jeffersons, Jamar Chases. Y'all got all LSU guys, but don't forget about guys like CeeDee Lamb, who from Louisiana as well. So, I mean, there's not going to be a problem with offensive talent in the state for Lane Kiffin. And I just think he will be, I just think it'd be like a kid in a candy store with him having LSU's resources and talent. Does it come with its drawbacks? Absolutely. I think any candidate out there not named Nick Saban has drawbacks. So I'm sure there's somebody in the comments that's going to say, well, Lane hasn't won the big game and his road record. Look, you can go down the list on every candidate available and find shortcomings unless their name's Nick Saban. But my number one candidate would be Lane Kiffin. Disclaimer, I agree with all the people who say you have to call Nick Saban and make him say no. Whether it's $20 million for 3 years or something like that, you just have to make him say no. But I'm not including him for the purposes of this list. Just only kind of guys that are actively coaching. So Lane Kiffin's my first call. If I get beyond Lane Kiffin, dream scenario, I'm calling Dan Lanning and asking him, how much do you need to leave Oregon? I know he's got a massive buyout. I know he's got stock in Nike, but LSU is just different, bro. It is. It's just different. So I'm making the call, at least making him tell me no. Next, LSU fans, we're going to groan when I say this, Marcus Freeman. I think Marcus Freeman is an amazing coach. Him at LSU with the resources. He's young. He's fiery. He's a play caller. Next thing I want out of a head coach is to be a play caller on either side of the ball. I think the CEO model has gone. I think it's gone. It's time to be done with. I don't really call plays. I just kind of sit back and we're beyond that. We need somebody that's either going to call plays on offense or somebody's going to call plays on defense. End of discussion. So I include Marcus Freeman in my top 3 of Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning, and Marcus Freeman. I think those 3 are on a tier by themselves. If you're asking me, one of those 3 guys would be the next coach of LSU if I had the decision to make. And then you get into names that we're kind of hearing in the coaching search. Kenny Dillingham from Arizona State's coming. So, in terms of, what I would do, I'm calling Lane Kiffin. I'm calling Dan Lanning. I'm calling Marcus Freeman, making those guys tell me no. And then, get into the next tier of guys. That's the Kenny Dillinghams, the John Summeralls, the Drinkwitz, those kind of guys. I'm okay with those guys, but I want to stay on tier 1 if I can. If it's me, I'm staying on tier 1. I'm making Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, or Marcus Freeman, one of those 3, the next coach of the LSU Tigers. So, we have a game this weekend to prepare for with all the news that LSU's been in the news with, the news for. We have a game to prepare for this weekend. We will play the Alabama Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be a tough game. I think we're a 10.5-point underdog. I will be back later on in the week to talk about the game. More so kind of about what we want to see from the team and kind of going forward. I just want to see this team play fast, play loose, have fun, have some of that LSU swagger. I mean, I talked to my dad about this. Just under these 4 years with Brian Kelly, we just didn't have the LSU swag and fun. Other than Jaden Daniels just kind of being electric and doing his thing and some elite neighbor swag, it just hasn't been super, super fun. It's been buttoned up and professional, if you want to call it. But, I think the thing that makes LSU, unique, as far as college football is concerned, is just that swagger, that Tyrann Mathieu swagger, that Joe Burrow swagger, those defenses that had all those amazing NFL players, that swagger. It's just something about the way the Tigers used to carry themselves. And especially on the field, you knew that you were in for a fight. You knew that you were going to be beat up, battered, bruised. And even if you won the game, you were going to be hurting the next week because you had a fast, hungry, feisty team stepping on the field and giving it to you for 4 quarters. So that's what I want to see. I want to see our coaches use our talent more. That means Harlem Berry needs to be used. That means Caden Durham needs to be used. That means Tre'Davious Green needs to be used. That means Aaron Anderson. I like to see those 4 guys become the nucleus of this LSU offense. I think we've gotten too enamored with the quote unquote weapons and trying to feed the ball to everywhere and 9, 12 different receivers. Let's focus this game plan in and make it small and build out. So let's make sure Caden's involved. Let's make sure Harlem Berry's involved. Let's make sure Tre'Davious is involved. Let's make sure Aaron Anderson is involved and kind of build the offense from there. I want to see Michael Van Buren and his legs be used and incorporated into this offense as well. I'm not necessarily saying bench Nuss right now. I think it's a discussion that you have if Nuss doesn't look great on Saturday because you got a new coach, a new regime. There's nothing tying you to having to put Garrett Nussmeier on the field if he's not playing well. If he's playing well, it is what it is. But if he's not playing well, there shouldn't be anything tying this coaching staff to him to say we just got to keep him on the field just because. So I want to see that team play fast, play with nothing to lose because we don't have anything to lose, right? The playoff hopes are gone. The season is for all intents and purposes, as far as our goals, it's gone. So let's just have fun. Let's throw it all out there. Let's throw the kitchen sink at Bama. Like I said, I want to see this team, stand up and have some gall about themselves. I want to see the offensive line block better. I want to see receivers catch the ball. I want to see Garrett stand in the pocket, make some throws, get rid of the ball quickly and get it to your weapons and feed your weapons. I want to see this defense play like it did against Clemson and not what we've seen the last 3 games. Ty Simpson is a runner. Not necessarily a runner, but he can use his legs. So I want to see us be able to contain someone that can use their legs. I want to see just the LSU swagger back. Like I said, I hope Coach Frank brings the LSU swagger back. I hope this team comes out and fight. I hope they're hungry. We'll talk more about that later on in the week, though. So back to this coaching thing. There's a thing that you have to weigh with, let's say, Lane Kiffin as the number 1 candidate, right? They're in the playoffs right now. They're a playoff team. How far does Lane go? How long does LSU wait? That's the question that we have to ask, right? Because signing day is coming up, 30 days, December. And then we have the portal opening in the beginning of January and closes on the 16th, I think, from January 2nd to January 16th. So how long does LSU wait before they get their guy in there? Me personally, I think it's worth the wait. If you have to wait past the signing period, past the portal window, but you get your guy's lane, it is what it is. 1 season, 1 class. We're talking about the future of the program. We're talking about the stability of the program. Getting your guy is worth it. Okay. And then there's a lot of buzz. Everybody's making content off buzz about the governor, Jeff Landry in Louisiana, making noise and making fuss. And, this is going to scare off X candidate. And people are worried about it. Look, I think people are making a bigger deal out of it than they need to be. Is it great? No. But LSU is going to make this coach possibly the highest paid football coach in America, NFL or college. I think LSU is going to pay anywhere from 13.5, possibly up to 15, 16 for their guy. Heck, if it's Saban, I think they throw 20 at Saban. So guys are going to take that job. They're not going to be concerned about the governor, who's not going to have anything to do with this once the AD and the president are hired. So stop running with the narrative. that the governor is scaring off candidates because if somebody puts a $20 million a year check in front of you, the governor is going to be the last thing on your mind. Yes, they want stability, but once an athletic director is hired, that's who the coach reports to, not the governor. Okay, let's not blow this out of proportion for clicks and likes. I get it, but let's not make this a bigger deal than what it actually is. Okay, LSU, the interim AD, Virg Osbury, if you didn't see the press conference that they had a couple days ago, I believe him. He said LSU is going to go get the best football coach in America. He laid it out there. They have lofty expectations. They expect to be in playoff consideration every year. So I think they're going to go get their guy. I don't think they're going to fire Brian Kelly, pay him $50 million to go home, and then go cheap on the next head coach. You just can't. I don't think it's possible. I don't think they're going to do that. There's way too much money and investment involved. It's the state's flagship university. I just think they're going to really take this hire seriously, and I think they're going to do everything they can to get their guy. So in turn, like I said, my guys, I'm calling Lane Kiffin. I'm calling Dan Lannon. I'm calling Marcus Freeman. I'm making those guys tell me no. After that, you get into that next tier, and I think all those guys are kind of jumbled up together. Somebody would have to separate themselves on the interview. I tend to lean towards more an offensive guy, so maybe Kenny Dillingham is the guy after that first tier of people. But Kenny's an Arizona guy. I think he attended school at Arizona State, so he's the coach there now. He's 35. He's a young, fiery guy. He's going to win the press conference. So there's a lot to like there. But is Kenny ready for a job like LSU? Is he? That's the gamble you have to take. Look, LSU took a gamble on Nick Saban before he was Nick Saban. They paid him a lot of money back then. I think it was $1 million they paid him back then, which was unheard of. LSU is going to always set the market on coaches, which is another reason why I say chill out on thinking that they are not going to get their guy. They're going to reset the market by going and get a coach to have him come in and coach football. Okay, so let's relax. Let's chill on the hyperbole with that. After Kenny Dillingham, as far as those next guys are concerned, I just think, me personally, I want an offensive guy. I just want an offensive guy. So I guess Lane is going to be my number one guy. Lanning and Marcus Freeman for obvious reasons. Kenny Dillingham after that. Maybe an OC like Brian Hartline gets in consideration. I don't know how much he has to do with Ohio State's offense, but I'm not vetting the staff or vetting the coaches, so I'm not in there to interview rooms. But sometimes you can interview a guy that's just not, on the beaten path, and he end up being the guy. So I just so many twists and turns left, and we're in the early stages. I don't know how quickly LSU is going to move because their guy may be on a playoff team. Hint, hint, Lane Kiffin. All right, so that's all I got for tonight. It's just a quick introductory episode about kind of what's next for LSU right now. Like I said, Frank Wilson is the interim head coach for right now, the running backs coach. Been there for a very long time. Think he can galvanize this team. LSU has a president in place as of today. Next step is to hire an AD, and then it's to get a head coach in. So, look, this is the Geauxld Standard LSU podcast. Make sure you lock in, like, share, subscribe. Send it out to your friends. Send it out to your Tiger family. We are one. LSU fans, have a great day. Peace out. Go Tigers.